Hayvan Haklarına Abolisyonist Yaklaşım adlı takip ediyor olduğumuz kuramın kuramcısı, kurucusu ve onu bize birçok kitabıyla ulaştıran Profesör Gary Lawrence Francione'un bizimle beraber bugün. Sizlerden gelen soruları daha çok bugün yanıtlıyor olacak. Onun öncesinde biraz yani aslında yürüyen tarihi olduğu için bize birazcık bilgi veriyor olacak. Geçirdiği dönemle ilgili hem bu abolisyonist yaklaşım gibi bir şeye neden ihtiyaç duyulduğu, hayvan hareketinin nasıl bir noktaya geldiği ve daha sonrasında nasıl tepkiler aldığı, birazdan bu soruları yönlendiriyor olacağım kendisine. Ve o cevaplarken siz de isterseniz canlı yayından kendi sorularınızı sorabileceksiniz. Onları çevirip aktaracağız. Ben mümkün olduğunca tam olarak bütün çeviriyi yapamayabilirim ama soruları mümkün olduğunca yorumlayarak, yani söylediği şeyleri elimden geldiğince size aktarmaya çalışacağım. İngilizce biliyorsanız ne ala ama bilmiyorsanız da umuyorum ki benim yapacağım yorumlamalar yeterli olacaktır. Peki şimdi bir merhaba diyelim. Gary, hi. It's great to have you here.
How are you?
Lovely. How are you?
I hope everybody is well, because I was very alarmed to hear about the earthquake that you had. So I hope everyone is safe, but particularly the Turkish vegans.
Yeah, I think we are safe, but we don't know about all the vegans in Izmir, the earthquake zone. But actually, today we have one abolitionist vegan from there here, and he was doing presentations for like 2 days now, for a whole weekend. When he was shaking with the earthquake, he was also doing the presentations. So this is how Turkish vegans care about animal rights.
All right. Excellent.
Okay, let me just... Bize deprem hakkında soru sordu. Hepimize, yani umuyorum ki bütün depremzedeler iyi durumdadır. Özellikle de Türkiye'deki veganlara çok büyük geçmiş olsun. Umuyorum ki hepsi iyi durumdadır dedi. Ben de durumumuzu anlattım ve bir yandan da aramızdan bir abolisyonist arkadaşımızın zaten şu anda bize katılıyor olduğunu, hayvan haklarını işte bu kadar önemsiyor olduğumuzu söyledim. Şimdi biraz önce bahsettiğim soruyu yönlendireceğim. Gary, let me ask you first one big question. We see you as a walking animal rights history now. So, actually, I think what we tell people about the animal rights movement history is just in theory, but you live these days, and you know how PETA was founded and how problematic it was. And can you tell us about this process, and also why did you need to build a new theory, the abolitionist approach, and also how did the animal movement take this theory? Did they reject, or how they treated you and the theory for years? Can you tell us about this process?
Sure. When I got involved with this, I had become a vegetarian in the 70s, in the 1970s, as a result of going to a slaughterhouse, and I stopped eating meat. And then, but I continued to eat dairy and eggs because I didn't know what a vegan was. I had never heard the word vegan. I'd never heard it before. And in 1982, I quite accidentally met Ingrid Newkirk, who was then working for the Washington Humane Society and who had recently founded PETA with her partner, Alex Pacheco. And I met her, as I say, it wasn't intentional. I mean, I just met her because I found a dog that had been hit by a car, and I called the Washington Humane Society, and she happened to show up. And we got to talking, and we had dinner that weekend, and Ingrid explained veganism to us. We didn't know anything about veganism. And so we became vegans immediately. We didn't realize that, you know, I actually thought that you needed, there were two beliefs I had back then that were wrong. One was I had no idea that cows had to be pregnant to give milk. I thought they just automatically gave milk. I didn't realize they were like other mammals that needed to be pregnant. And secondly, I didn't think you could live without some animal protein. You know, it was 1982. So she introduced us to veganism. We became vegan. If you'd like me to stop there, or I can continue a few more minutes.
Okay, maybe I can translate first.
Okay.
Geri şöyle başladı hikayeye. 70'lerde ben önce vejetaryen oldum. Çünkü veganlığın ne olduğunu bilmiyordum. Bir mezbahaya gittim ve durumdan çok etkilendim ve vejetaryen oldum. Ama süt ve yumurta kullanmaya devam ediyordum. Sonra 1982'de Ingrid Newkirk ve Alex Pacheco ile tanıştım. Ve onlar da o zamanlar yeni bir oluşum kurmaya hazırlanıyorlardı. Ve onlarla konuştuk, bir akşam yemeği yedik ve bana veganlığı onlar anlattılar. O zamana kadar ben bir ineğin süt vermek için hamile bırakıldığını bilmiyordum. Zannediyordum ki zaten doğrudan süt veriyorlar. İkincisi, o zamana kadar vegan yaşayabileceğimi bilmiyordum ve hayvansal protein olmadan hayatta kalabileceğimi bilmiyordum. Bunların ikisi hakkında bilgi aldıktan sonra zaten vegan oldum. Thank you. Maybe you can go on.
And I remember the first time we had dinner. I met Ingrid earlier in a week, and it was October. It was October 1982. And she and Alex came for dinner on a Friday night in October. And we stayed up all night talking about this new thing that we had learned about called veganism. And we became vegans immediately. I have not knowingly, neither has Anna, my partner, knowingly consumed an animal product since October of 1982. And so, you know, we had leather shoes and wool things, but we got, you know, as those things got old, we just got, you know, we replaced them with non-animal things, which was very difficult back then. There wasn't, now you can easily get vegan shoes and, you know, whatnot. But back then it was a lot more difficult. And so we started working with Ingrid and Alex, and Peter was a very small group, and it was composed mostly of people who were they were all vegans, and they were people who were, for the most part, politically progressive people. There were people who had, you know, there were people who were politically progressive, and we you know, I don't know, Gulache, whether I can say that there was an agenda. I mean, it was we were talking about animal rights, but nobody knew what that meant in 1982. That was the problem. We knew, or we thought, that we were different from the animal welfare groups like the Humane Society of the United States or like the Animal Welfare Institute or whatever. There were all these animal welfare groups around. We thought we were different from them, but to be frank, it wasn't quite clear why we were different. I'm not sure we had a very clear vision of why we were different. If you want to go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Ingrid ve Alex bana 1982'de partnerim Anna ile evimize geldiklerinde bir gece uzun konuştuk ve o gecenin sonunda Anna ve ben hemen vegan olduk. Ve hatta vegan ayakkabı bulmak, hani şu anda sizin için çok kolay olabilir diyor ama bizim için çok zordu. Ama ayakkabılarımızla çizmelere kadar her şeyi değiştirdik ve hemen vegan olduk. O zamanlar Ingrid ve Alex PETA'yı kurdular. Ve PETA aslında çok küçük bir gruptu. Biz de onlarla birlikte hareket ediyorduk. Çok küçük bir gruptu ve herkes vegandı. Ama çoğunlukla hepsi bir yandan da zaten politik ilerici insanlardı. Hani bir şeyler yapmaya çalışan progresif insanlardı. Ama şöyle bir sıkıntı vardı. hayvan hakları diye bir şeyden bahsediyorduk. Ama hiçbirimiz bu hayvan hakları denen şeyin ne olduğunu bilmiyordu. Humane Society ve bunun benzeri bir takım örgütlerden, refahçı örgütlerden farklı olduğumuzu düşünüyorduk. Ama farkın ne olduğunu hiçbirimiz bilmiyorduk. Thank you. Maybe we can go on.
And so at the time, Peter was focused mostly on exposing what was going on in laboratories with animals, vivisection. And so what was happening was there had been a number of actions where people had gone into laboratories and had either removed animals or removed information. And PETA was the group that would get this information anonymously, and then they would disseminate it and whatnot. So my introduction to animal rights or to whatever you want to call what was going on back then was focusing on vivisection. But veganism was a foregone conclusion. We were all vegans. I mean, it wasn't even a matter of discussion. We were all vegans. I mean, it was, it was what it was. And it was, so we worked together very closely on a number of cases that were actually very important in raising the issue of the moral status of animals. But they all focused on vivisection. They involved Alex Pacheco's working at Dr. Taub's laboratory in Maryland, the Silver Spring Monkeys case. It involved our working together at the University of Pennsylvania head injury lab case. I was at the University of Pennsylvania at the time, teaching there. And it had to do with other laboratories. It was focused almost exclusively on vivisection. By the time we got to the later 80s, it was becoming clear that we needed an agenda. We needed something. The media would be interested in these vivisection cases. They were getting tired of them. So we weren't getting that sort of attention that we were getting early on. And we did get quite a bit of attention early on. And we weren't getting that. And so we needed to have some sort of positive agenda. And three things emerged as things that people wanted to focus on. One was to try to get more media attention. They wanted to promote sexism because they thought that by eroticizing things, they would get more media attention. So they wanted to sexualize animal rights or whatever you want to call it. And there was also this focus on violence, on, this militancy and the Animal Liberation Front and all this sort of stuff. This, what I think of as sort of a macho thing. And they started drifting towards campaigns, like welfarist campaigns. Like they started pursuing the same sorts of campaigns that the other groups were pursuing, the welfarist groups were pursuing, but they were saying, well, we've got a different goal in mind. We want to end it all. They don't want to end it all. We want to end it all, but they were doing the same campaigns. So why don't you go ahead and do that? Because that's quite a bit of...
Okay then. Şununla başladık. Yani PETA'nın serüveniyle devam ediyorduk. PETA en çok laboratuvarlardaki bu diri kesime odaklanarak eylem yapmayı planlıyordu. Ve gerçekten de içeriye gizlice girip, o laboratuvarlara gizlice girip oralardan görüntüler aldılar. Birçok görüntüler aldılar ve bu görüntüleri medyaya verdiler kamuoyu yaratmak adına. Bununla birlikte, yani vivisection'a, bu diri kesime odaklanıyor olmamızla birlikte aslında hepimiz vegandık ve bunun gerekliliği hepimizin arasında tartışılmaz bir şeydi. Veganlığın ve hayvanların ahlaki statüsünün önemli olduğunu konuşuyorduk. Ama buna rağmen gündemimiz medyada daha çok yankı uyandırdığı için vivisection yani diri kesim olarak devam ediyordu. Daha sonra bu 80'lerin sonrasına doğru artık medya bizim yaptığımız şeylerden sıkılmaya başladı. Çünkü onlara sürekli şiddet görselleri yani hayvanlara uygulanan şiddet görselleri verip duruyorduk. Medya bundan sıkılmaya başladı ve bizim daha pozitif görünen, daha olumlu görünen bir gündeme ihtiyacımız oldu. Onunla gündeme gelmeye ihtiyacımız oldu ve gruptaki arkadaşlar bunun cinselleştirme olabileceğini düşündüler. Daha çok kadın bedenini daha çıplak bir şekilde, daha cinsel, daha erotik bir şekilde ortaya koyup bu şekilde reklamlar yapmanın daha çok gündem yaratacağını düşündüler. Ve bununla birlikte şiddete ihtiyaç duyuldu. Bu Animal Liberation Front'la, ALF'le beraber gelen şiddet vizyonu gerekti ve onunla birlikte biz güçlüyüz, biz sıkı çocuklarız gibi bir aslında vizyona da ihtiyaç duyuldu. Bütün bunlar çünkü kamuoyunun daha çok dikkatini çekiyordu. Aslında yapıyor olduğumuz eylemler diğer refahçı ekiplerle, diğer refahçı derneklerle aynı eylemlerdi. Ama düşünüyorduk ki onlar hayvanların kullanımına devam etmek istiyor. Biz bu eylemleri hayvanların kullanımını bitirmek için yapıyoruz. Thank you. We may go on.
I couldn't have said that better myself.
Thank you. Yeah, because you know Turkish, yeah, I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in any event, so by the time the late 1980s rolled around, you know, I had been at that time, I was not really sort of doing a lot of theory. I was a law professor, and I was teaching and doing scholarship that law professors do. But most of my animal work was not theoretical. I was a lawyer representing PETA and other groups, but mostly PETA, in their various campaigns, because they had lots of legal issues that came up, and I helped them with those legal issues. But then towards the end of the 1980s, I really started sort of thinking about all of this more. And I had become very good friends with Tom Reagan, who wrote The Case for Animal Rights. And so I'd become very good friends with him, and he and I, we got close, and it became clear to me that we needed somehow, I mean, it was clear to me fairly early on that welfare, there was something terribly wrong with these welfare cases. Although I used to do those sorts of things. I mean, I participated in a lot of welfare campaigns, but it was becoming clear to me it didn't work. They didn't work. And they didn't work for two primary reasons, because they didn't do much to help animals. They provided very little, they provided very little in the way of improvement of welfare. And secondly, the effect they had for the most part was making people feel more comfortable about continuing to exploit animals. So it was clear to me that didn't work. It was also clear to me that we were not political. We had, with all of this business with sexism, it was becoming clear to me that we didn't really have we weren't really sort of interested. We weren't involved politically in terms of the movement, neither being, this idea that it was a centrist movement, that it wasn't left and it wasn't right. Well, I don't believe in that concept. And I believe that the movement was left. And the third thing is I didn't like the violence stuff at all, because I thought it was just a way for people to vent anger and whatever, and it wasn't going to be helpful. And that violence was the problem. Why were we promoting violence and whatever? And so I just didn't like that stuff. So I started thinking a lot about this, and then that's when the abolitionist approach emerged, as a result of basically what I was doing in the 1980s, the fact that I saw it was going wrong and not knowing what to do. And I thought we need a theory.
Yeah.
I wrongly assumed, this will be the last idea and then you can translate, but I wrongly assumed that the abolitionist approach that I was developing was the theory. I thought that that's what we all believed. And but I realized that I was wrong, and we'll go into that in the next segment.
Okay. Evet, şimdi başlayalım. 1980'lerde diyor, ben zaten PETA'nın ve onun benzeri grupların yanında bir hukuk profesörü olarak bulunuyordum. Yani onların eylemlerine katılmıyordum ama onları desteklediğim için onların yasal sorunlarını çözmeye çalışıyordum. Ve işimiz daha çok böyle bir şeye dönüşmüştü. Hani bir şeyler yapalım, bu cinsiyetçilikle ilgili ya da işte cinselleştirmeyle ilgili ya da şiddetle ilgili bir şeyler olsun ve bunlar gündem yaratsın ama bunlarla ilgili yasal sorunlar olsun, ben de bunları çözeyim. Böyle bir şeye dönmüştü. Ve diyor o aralar bu hukuk sayesinde, bu kendi alanım sayesinde Tom Regan'la tanıştım ve onunla yakın arkadaş oldum. Ve hayvan hakları meselesini onunla birlikte tartışmaya başladığımda, bu arada The Case for Animal Rights, Tom Regan, daha önce de bahsetmiştik. Onunla daha yakın arkadaş olduğumda ve hak meselesini odağa koyduğumda refahçılıkla ilgili sıkıntıların daha da çok farkına varmaya başladım. Bunun çok ciddi bir sorun olduğunun farkına varmaya başladım diyor. Bunun birkaç tane sebebi vardı. Birincisi, hiçbir gelişme olmuyordu. Hayvanlarla ilgili hiçbir gelişmeye ulaşamıyorduk. Hiçbir şimdiye kadar ilerleme kaydedememiştik. Hayvanlarla ilgili durum gittikçe kötüleşiyordu. İkincisi, insanların içlerini rahatlatmaya başlamıştık. İnsanlar hem hayvan kullanıyorlardı hem de yaptığımız refahçı eylemler sayesinde, onların önerileri sayesinde içleri rahat rahat hayvan kullanabilmeye başlamışlardı. Üçüncüsü, önceden politiktik. Ben solcu olduğumuzu düşünüyordum. Biraz daha kimlik hareketleriyle, her şeyle iç içe olduğumuzu düşünüyordum. Ama biz cinselliği kendi eylemlerimiz için kullanan apolitiklere dönüşmüştük diyor. Ve dördüncüsü, şiddet kullanımından hiç hoşlanmamıştım. Çünkü şiddet zaten bizim kendi sorunumuzdu. Şiddet zaten bizim çözmeye çalıştığımız şeydi. En temelinden, hayvana şiddet kısmından çözmeye çalıştığımız şeydi. Ve biz neden buna rağmen şiddeti hareketin bir parçası haline getiriyorduk. Bütün bunlarla yeni bir yaklaşıma ihtiyaç olduğunu, yeni bir kuramsal altyapıya ihtiyaç olduğunu anladım ve abolisyonist yaklaşımı ortaya koydum. Ama ben bu yaklaşımı ortaya koyarken zaten bütün bu ilkelerde hemfikir olduğumuzu düşünüyordum. Çünkü biz beraber yola çıkmıştık. Ama gerçekten çok yanılmıştım diyor ve şimdi devam edecek. Okay, we may go.
Okay. Now, what happened after that was I started doing serious work on legal theory and legal jurisprudential theory on the status of animals and trying to understand why animal welfare didn't work, and came to the conclusion that what we needed to do was, as long as animals were property, they wouldn't be able to be protected very well because it costs money to protect the animal interests. And if we were eating them, wearing them, using them, and we didn't really care about them very much, then how much protection were we willing to purchase? So that was really never going to work. And so I started thinking about the right of not being property and how that related to Tom Regan's views about animal rights, which were a little bit different from mine. And I was also becoming aware that lots of animal people who were coming into the movement were not vegans. And this puzzled me. It still does. Decades later, it still does. And I didn't really understand why they weren't vegans. And I also, and so I thought, well, you can't regulate animal. I mean, that was the conclusion of my first study, was that animals, if they're property, are never going to be protected very well because they're property. And, yeah, you can have a little bit of more protection here, a little less here. I mean, there can be differences. Some countries can give more, some countries can give, but it'll always be low. Because as long as we're using them as resources, we're never going to want to buy much protection, right? Because if we wanted to buy a lot of protection, if we cared that much, we wouldn't be eating them or wearing them or whatever in the first place. And so the second sort of idea that I thought was really important was this idea of emphasizing veganism, that as long as we animal people were participating in their exploitation, what were we talking about? It didn't make any sense. And so it was opposed to the welfarism, and it was opposed to anything but veganism. Vegetarianism was an incoherent position, and it was about violence. It was about nonviolence and about about not participating in discrimination and whatnot of any sort, and not commodifying other humans in the way that sexism does. And so these ideas were gelling in my head, and Tom Reagan and I started going and doing presentations all around the place, discussing these ideas. So why don't you do that, and we'll...
Okay. Evet. Diyor ki sonradan hayvanların yasal statüsü üzerine bir hayli çalıştım. Hani bu yanıldım ama bir yandan da şeye devam ettim. Hani hayvanlar için çalışmaya devam ettim. Hayvanların meselesini, asıl meselesini, yasal statüsünü anlamaya çalışmaya devam ettim diyor. Ve sıkıntının hayvanları biz zaten kullanırken, bütün toplum hayvanları kullanmaya devam ederken bizim hayvanları statüsünü değiştirmeye, parayla değiştirmeye çalışmamız, bu refahçı kampanyalarla, toplanan bağışlarla değiştirmeye çalışmamız olduğunun farkına vardım diyor. Ama bir yandan da Reagan'la bu mesele hakkında çalışmaya devam edemeyeceğimi de gördüm. Çünkü Reagan'ın görüşleri benimkilerden bir hayli farklıydı. Onu görmeye başladım diyor. Bunu zaten daha önce de konuşmuştuk sunumlarda, hatırlamayanlar için. Reagan hayvanların hepsinin değil, memelilerin onlardan daha üstün olduğunu söylüyor. Hissedebilirliği temel almıyor. Ve diyor hayvanseverlerin neden vegan olup, bir yandan vegan olup, bir yandan da refahçılığı savunmaya devam ediyor olduğunu hiçbir zaman anlayamadım. Çünkü kendileri veganlar, hayvan kullanmıyorlar ama insanlara hayvanları şu ya da bu şekilde kullanmanın diğerinden daha iyi olduğunu söylüyorlar. Bunun kendisi çok anlaşılmaz bir şey diyor. Ve diyor ki hayvan mal olduğu sürece, yani biz vegan olmadığımız ve hayvanlara mal statüsünü vermeye devam ettiğimiz sürece bunun tarihi coğrafyası yok. Bu her yerde aynı kalacak. Yasalar şu ya da bu şekilde değişebilir ama hayvanın mal statüsü devam ettiği sürece biz hayvanları parayla koruyamayız. Biz kendimiz hayvan sömürüsüne dahilken hayvanları korumamız nasıl mümkün olabilir ki diyor. Ve vejetaryenlik de yine o zamanlar üzerine konuşulan bir şeydi ama vejetaryenliğin kendisi de tutarsızdı çünkü diğer hayvan kullanımlarından bir fark yoktu. Aynı şeydi. Ve aynı zamanda bir yandan vejetaryenleri de harekete kabul eden bu hayvan hareketi ayrımcılıklar, metalaştırma gibi bir sürü şeyi de insanlar için olan haksızlığı da dahil ediyor ve buna da hayvanlar için gibi bir yakıştırma yaparak içeride meşrulaştırmaya çalışıyordu. Bunların hepsinin yanlış olduğuna dair birçok yerde sunumlar yapmaya başladım diyor. Devam ediyoruz. Okay, we can go on.
All right. And so what happened, are you going to join us?
Sure.
Okay, Anna's coming over.
Yay!
This is Anna. That's Gulacek. Did you ever meet Gulacek?
Anna! Hello.
Yeah.
Long time no see. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine too. It's really great to see you both here. Really, really great. Yeah, actually, in this pandemics, and Gary also told me about the sickness process and everything. And I'm really, really glad to see you alive and healthy here.
Anyway, so what at the time in the 1990s, Anna and we were running a litigation clinic at Rutgers, and we were training law students to be animal lawyers, but basically we didn't do what animal lawyers normally did. We basically represented humans who had human rights issues that were connected with animals. For example, they didn't want to dissect or vivisect in the classroom, or they were prisoners who wanted vegan food or things like that. And so we were working together on that front. But at the same time, we were very close with Tom and Nancy. Used to regularly come and stay with Tom. White Reagan and his partner Nancy used to regularly come and stay with us in New York City, and we were working on this whole sort of theory of what it was all about. And as I said, I think Tom and I were pretty much agreed on most of it. Politically, he and I were different in that he was more of a libertarian, and I've never really understood libertarianism, and so he was more of a libertarian, and I was more of a democratic socialist sort of person, but it fell apart, Gulache, towards the end of the 90s.
I meant just mention,
yeah.
And I don't know if Gulache has to translate.
Yeah, she's gonna translate.
Yeah. The animal rights movement in this country had been really focused on Peter Singer, and really hadn't embraced Tom Reagan, because Peter Singer's approach, is sort of making a bad situation better, and tackling this practice and tackling that practice and making it less cruel. And it hadn't really focused on a rights approach. And that's what Tom and Gary were working on. And that's what really led to the abolitionist approach coming out of that time.
Yeah, I think the animal groups like PETA and the rest of them, they were very, very attracted to Peter, because Peter gave them what they wanted, which is basically a recipe for a business model. Just go out and reduce suffering. Well, anything reduces suffering. I mean, or anything can be argued to reduce suffering. So basically it allowed them to have an endless number of useless campaigns. And they could say, this is animal, this is animal liberation.
It didn't stop the whole industry.
Right. And so Tom and I were trying to do something different. But the pressure, you can't understand what the pressure was like, because what was also happening in the 1990s was you're getting a zillion groups starting, because in the 1980s in this country, it was focused mostly on, the old line groups like the HSUS or the ASPCA or whatever. And PETA was unique. I mean, PETA, but by the time the 90s rolled around, there were a bunch of other groups that had come into existence. And so there's now this big neo-welfare movement, this what I call new welfarist movement starting, where they're pursuing the same campaigns that HSUS and everybody else, all the classical welfarists pursued, only they were saying our end point is different. We want to end animal exploitation. They don't want to end it. And you want to go ahead and...
Thank you. First of all, let me also introduce Anna. Şu anda arkadaşlar Gary Francione'un ve Anna Charlton'la birlikteyiz. Yani Türkiye'de en çok satılan ve en çok işimize yarayan hayvan hakları kitaplarından bir tanesi olan İnsan Neden Vegan Olur'un 2 tane yazarı. I said that you are the co-authors of Eat Like You Care because it's a very important book to us, for and to the all over the world, to the animal rights people. Ve gerçekten burada ikisini birden ağırlamaktan çok mutluyuz. Şimdi kaldığımız yerden devam edeyim. Rutgers'da aslında bir şeyleri var, hukuk klinikleri var o zaman, Anna ile Gary'nin ve hayvanlar için çalışan insanların işte bu şeyleri diri kesime karşı çıkan şudur budur hani bir şekilde yasalarla sıkıntı yaşayacak şekilde karşı çıkıyor olan insanları savunma gibi bir konumları var. Ve bir yandan da işte Tom Regan ve onun partneri Nancy ile yakınlar, yakın arkadaşlar ve hani birlikte çalışıyorlar. Politik olarak farklı olduklarını söylüyorlar. Çünkü Tom Regan libertaryen, o zamanlar Gary ve Anna sosyal demokrat, ama bir yandan da Singer'a karşı, Peter Singer'a karşı birleşmiş durumdalar. Çünkü Peter Singer hak meselesini, hayvan hakları meselesini o zamanlar itibarsızlaştırmaya çalışıyor. Çünkü kendi utilitarian bakış açısı aslında çok çok farklı hak meselesinden. Dolayısıyla da aslında ona karşı birleşmiş durumdalar. Görüşleri birbirinden farklı olmakla beraber. Ve Singer tabii PETA ile birlikte çalışıyor o zamanlar ve PETA tabii ki çok seviliyor hayvan hareketi tarafından. Çünkü aslında insanlara bir iş modeli veriyor. İşte biz eylemler yapalım. O eylemler bir yandan insanlardan bağışlar toplasın. O bağışlarla hepimiz bir yandan geçiniyor olalım. Topladığımız paralarla bir yerlere yatırımlar yapalım. Ve bir yandan da insanlara diyelim ki zaten çoktan değiştirilebilecek olan bir şeyleri değiştirdiğimiz için zafer işte bunu da yapabildik gibi bir izlenim vererek, onların gözünde kendimizi çok iyi bir noktaya getirerek işe yararmış gibi yapalım. Bu gerçek bir iş modeli ve bu yanlış bir şey ve bu hayvanlara zarar veriyordu. Bu insanların aslında vegan olmadan da hayvanlar için bir şeyler yapabileceği bakış açısını destekliyor durumdaydı. Ve ben bundan farklı bir şey yapmaya çalıştım diyor. Ama çok zordu. Çünkü birçok grup ortaya çıktı PETA'ya benzeyen o zamanlar ve yeni refahçı hareket hayvan hareketindeki ana akım haline geldi. Yani insanlar bir yandan hayvan meselesinde hayvan kullanımını bitirmeye çalıştıklarını savunuyorlardı ama bir yandan da hayvan meselesini daha iyi şartlara, hani hayvan kullanımını daha iyi şartlara bağlamaya çalışan bir sürü eylemi destekliyorlardı. Ana eylem biçimlerini bunlar oluşturuyordu ve bunlar gerçekten hakim durumdaydı. O yüzden de bizi çok ciddi zora koşmuştu. Thank you. Maybe we can go on.
We both agree. That's what we would have said. Yes, we both agree with that.
Yeah, right. I know. So, and also you speak Turkish. It's great.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just shy.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And so the pressure was pretty bad. The groups got very upset with Tom and me because we were criticizing them, and not we basically were trying to get them to change. We were trying to get them to change direction, and that's why. I mean, Rain Without Thunder, which I wrote in 1996, was intended to sort of be an invitation to these groups to sort of restructure themselves because they just weren't thinking clearly about it. And here, I was going to help them out, and and they didn't want the help. And so, Tom and I thought we could change the movement. That was naive. The movement, these businesses, to call it a movement is ridiculous. These are businesses. They're charities, but they're businesses. They've got to bring money in, and they've got to bring a lot of money in, and they're all competing with each other. So they're businesses, and they did not like what we were doing. The one thing they all agreed with was that they didn't like what we were doing, and some things happened, and I guess I wrote about this I wrote it in an essay. I don't know if you've seen it. It's in Between the Species. I wrote it. It was a memorial issue about Tom Regan after he died.
Yeah, I remember that.
Did you read that essay I wrote about?
Yeah. I don't remember now, but I know I read it.
Yeah. Well, that essay, I talk about how things fell apart between me and Tom because the groups got very upset with us. And they wanted us to stop, and I wasn't willing to stop, and Tom was. Tom.
I mean, it's important to remember that was a different time, and because the groups really controlled the contact with other people who were interested in the issue. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have YouTube. We couldn't do what we're doing today.
Right, we couldn't do what we're doing right now.
So they could shut down a message they didn't like, and they certainly did that.
Yeah, you had to, if you weren't part of that circuit, those groups, if you weren't in with those people, you had no access to animal people, because that's how they all communicated at these conferences. They used to have all these they had multiple conferences every year, and they had magazines, and that's how the communication worked. And Tom felt, well, I can't speak for Tom, and Tom is dead. So, but at least my perception was that Tom was very upset by the fact that we were getting a negative reaction. And his response, my response was to say, if you don't like it, tough. His reaction was to say, okay, I'll change. And he changed. And so that fell apart. And then it became clear to me that, we were sort of out there alone. And we need, and for several years, I mean, basically, we just worked on stuff together that we were doing. And it was only in the early 2000s when a guy named Randy Sandberg from Apple Computer called me and said I needed to go online. And I told him I wasn't interested. And he said it was absolutely essential. And I told him I wasn't interested. And I told him about 45,000 times I wasn't interested. And he was very persistent. And he eventually persuaded me, and I started doing this online stuff, which I don't do enough of. I need to do more of, but I do enough of it now. I don't do enough of it. I should do more.
Do a lot of teaching,
but I do a lot. But I was able to get the message. I mean, how would I have talked to you in 1992? Well, I mean, you were a child in 1992, and it probably would. But
11 years old, yeah.
Yeah. But how would I have communicated with someone like you in 1992? And the answer is I couldn't. I mean, how would I know there was this person? I mean, how would I know that? I mean, you might send me a letter through the mail. Can you believe people actually used to send pieces of paper through the mail? But how would we have communicated? And so now things are very different. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe, I would write you a letter like, "Hi, Gary, I'm 11 years old and I'm a fan of your approach. So can you please teach me?"
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm translating. Evet. Bayağı bir şeyler geçti. Şimdi arkadaşlar. Evet. En son şimdi üzerimizde diyor çok baskı vardı Tom'la birlikte ve yani bizim harekete yaptığımız eleştirileri hiç sevmediler. Hareket hiç sevmedi. Aslında Rain Without Thunder'la birlikte yani Rain Without Thunder'ı biliyorsunuzdur. Daha önceden de bahsetmişizdir. Francione'un ilk kitaplarından bir tanesi ve harekete olan aslında şu anda meydan okuması olarak gördüğümüz önemli, çok önemli bir kitabı. Rain Without Thunder'ı da bulabilirsiniz, sipariş edebilirsiniz. Mutlaka okunması gereken bir kitap. Ve hayvan haklarını diyor, Rain Without Thunder'la birlikte savunmaya davet ettim aslında ben hareketi. Ve diyor ki Tom Regan'la birlikte biz hareketi değiştirebileceğimizi düşünüyorduk o zamanlar. Ama yanıldık çünkü hareket çoktan şirketleşmişti. Ve şirketleşmiş bir hareketi kendi karlarından vazgeçmeye, kendi eylemlerinden ve kimliklerinden vazgeçmeye ikna etmek çok zor bir şeydi. Ve yapılamaz bir şeydi de aslında ve o yüzden de bizden nefret ettiler diyor. Ve bizim durmamızı istediler. Ve o zamanlar Anna söylüyor yani şu anki gibi düşünmeyin diyor. Sosyal medya yoktu o zamanlar. Biz size nasıl ulaşacaktık? Sadece insanlara ulaşabilme yolumuz konferanslardı. Bir yerlerde çıkmak da etmekti ve bütün böyle yerlerden bizi dışladılar. Hiçbir yere çağırmadılar. Hiçbir yerde hiçbir söylediğimizi anlattırmadılar. Ve diyor bu süreç içinde Tom Regan maalesef çok morali bozuldu ve hareketin istediği şeyi yapmaya karar verdi. Ve ben bir anda yalnız kalmıştım diyor. Ve yalnız kaldığım için de uzun bir zaman ta ki 2000'lere kadar hareketten tamamen dışlanmış bir şekilde teori hakkında yazmaya devam ettim diyor. Ve 2000'lerde Apple'dan Randy Sandberg beni konuşmaya çağırdı diyor ve ben o konuşmayı da aslında reddettim çünkü hani bıkmıştım, usanmıştım olumsuz tepkilerden ama diyor bir şekilde söyledi ve beni ikna etmeyi başardı. Neyse ki de öyle oldu diyor ve oradan da devam edeceğiz şimdi. What are you talking about?
I said it must be so nice to go back and forth between two languages like that. You know, I mean, it's a wonderful facility.
You know, I wasn't using verbal English for a very long time, so I'm a little bit rusty. I'm so sorry, but you know, I'm just doing my best now.
No.
It's amazing.
What you have to answer a question. What does choke mean? Because it comes up a number of times, and I don't know what it means.
It's very.
So I thought so. Okay, yeah,
what?
Very.
Oh, okay.
Very, yeah.
Okay. All right, very. Okay.
Yeah, so sorry, you know, sorry for
no, that's okay. That's okay. I was just I asked her. I said, "What that choke has come up 3 times?" All right.
Right. Okay.
So
now she's going to be.
Tom became very. I think I don't want to say intimidated, but he became. Well, I guess intimidated. I mean, he became disconcerted by the reaction, and so he basically decided to work with the groups and and try to. I mean, I don't know what his thinking was because we never spoke actually. After that, after we split in the 1990s, we didn't have much communication. As a matter of fact, we had very little communication till a couple of years before he died. We had some very minor communication, but so I never really was able to speak to him about what his thinking was, and I'm sure, and it probably wouldn't have been any use anyway. But I don't know whether he thought he was going to change them from inside or whatever. But the bottom line is, we were sort of out there alone, and developing the abolitionist approach, which we did. And
I'm so sorry. May I ask a question? His thoughts about mammals are superior to the other animals. Was that from the times you worked with, or was it after the animal movement rejected your approach?
Oh, no. It was what he had said was that. Sort of complicated. He said that subjects of a life were animals that had certain cognitive capacities, but he thought that other animals could have those capacities, but he never really said sentience was enough. And it would have been hard for him to say sentience was enough because of the way that he had built the theory around preference autonomy. It would have been difficult. I mean, not impossible. Well, it would have been sort of difficult for him to sort of backtrack and say sentience is enough, unless he was willing to say, which I think he could have, that sentience is enough to give you the preference autonomy and the other characteristics that the mammals had. But no, that was in the case for animal rights in 1983. I mean, he and I just disagreed about certain things, but he and I mean, I was able to work with him even though we disagreed. See, people think I'm a difficult, divisive guy. This is not true. I'm actually a very wonderful person to work with. Choke wonderful. Choke wonderful.
Choke wonderful. Okay. Maybe we can say Regan was not perfect, but Singer was the worst. So you should come together again.
This is Duncan. Duncan is one of our.
Hi, Duncan. Long time no Lucy, hey.
You've met Duncan before, right? You've seen Duncan.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Come and say hello.
Yeah, he's one of our very abused dogs. He was he was horribly abused, and now he's very happy. You're very happy, aren't you? Okay. He's very happy, but we worked together, even though we had differences. The thing was that Singer's views were just. Singer basically, I mean, if you take the position that animal people ought to support anything which reduces suffering, it is a prescription for a complete disaster, because anything can be characterized as reducing suffering. So therefore anything is okay. And that's what animal people ought to pursue. And so if you say, well, if you're eating less meat, that's great. Well, fine. Then you have a campaign. So, let's have one less animal product a week. And that's a great campaign. And let's say, it's just ridiculous. Let's not do
it on Monday.
Right. Let's not do it on Monday.
Beginning of the year and all this sort of
exactly.
stuff. And now you may have similar things in Turkey, but now we have, the more expensive supermarkets have great big butcher sections, with meat all over it, but it tells you it's better welfare. So they've still got butcher's shops essentially, but you can feel good about it. It's terrible.
There is this a big chain here called Whole Foods, which sells Happy Meat. And in 2005, when Peter Singer endorsed them, they were promoting Peter Singer's endorsement of their Happy Meat. Father of the animal rights movement says our meat's okay.
The father.
So Tom and I had differences, but we were more aligned. One of the difficulties we had was later on, as we were working together, I learned that he was not always vegan, and that he would occasionally consume animal products, which upset me quite a bit. and he and I had an uncomfortable. As a matter of fact, my recollection of it is it was a very uncomfortable exchange over that issue. And but people if people are interested in this part of the history, they ought to read that essay in Between the Species, because I discussed the beginning of the movement and my working with Reagan and how that all sort of came about and how it all fell apart. And
do you mean the one you wrote after Reagan?
Mm-hmm.
The one that's in Between the Species, I think it's called Tom Reagan and Reflections on an Animal Rights Movement That Once Was, or something like that. But it's in Between the Species. You can give them. It goes through the history of it, and you can.
Maybe we translated that. I don't remember, but okay, we didn't. We will immediately.
Yeah, you should. In fact, this afternoon, start translating this evening.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. This evening. Yeah, we're gonna do that. Okay. After 2 days of vegan events, and we will still do that. We promise.
Yes, good.
Okay. Okay. May I translate a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Evet, nerede kalmıştık arkadaşlar? Şimdi öncelikle şeyden bahsettiler. Tom Reagan'ın morali bozuldu ve pes etti ve diğer gruplarla çalışmaya başladı. Ve tam da bu yüzden biz 90'larda maalesef ayrılmak durumunda kaldık Tom Reagan'la. Şimdi ama ben de o arada şeyi sordum. Peki daha önce de konuştuk diğer sunumlarda. Tom Reagan'ın bu memelileri diğer hayvanlardan daha önemli olarak görmesi ve aslında her hayvanın, insanlar da dahil çıkarları birbirinden farklıdır. O yüzden hayatlarının değeri de birbirinden farklıdır üzerine olan teorisi, yaşam öznesi üzerinden. Bu şeyden önce miydi? Hayvan meselesi, hayvan hareketinin reddedişinden önce miydi? Yani pes etmesinden önce miydi, sonra mıydı diye. Dedi ki bu durumun kendisiyle doğrudan bir ilgisi yok. Çünkü Reagan'ın aslında kendi teorisi maalesef onun hissedebilirliği temel almasına izin vermiyor. Bu yaşam öznesi meselesi hissedebilirliği temel almasına izin vermiyor. Ve biz bu ayrımı zaten en baştan da biliyorduk. Ama Peter Singer o kadar yanlış bir şeyi savunuyordu ki hareketin içinde. Onun karşısında gerçekten birleşmek durumunda kaldık. Birazcık da ondan bahsetti. Belki daha önceki sunumlarımızdan da hatırlarsınız. Böyle büyük bir görsel vardır. İşte bir kasap. Kasapta bir sürü hayvanların kesilmiş, lime lime edilmiş etleri ama üstünde kocaman merhamet yazar. İşte o merhamet aslında Peter Singer'ın ve onunla beraber bir sürü hayvan örgütünün desteklediği bir şey ve hatta onların teşekkür mektubu yazdığı bir şey. Biz o makaleyi çevirmiştik. Francione'un bundan uzun uzun bahsediyordu. O makalenin de belki daha sonra linkini de atarız. Bizim sitemizde de bulabilirsiniz. Singer'ın bu konumunun ne kadar yanlış olduğunu o makale aslında çok çok iyi açıklıyor. Ve Tom Reagan'la tam da bu yüzden devam etmek durumunda kaldık. Ve Francione'un bir tane Tom Reagan'ın biliyor musunuz bilmiyorum ama Tom Reagan bir zaman önce birkaç yıl önce vefat etti. Ve Tom Reagan'ın vefatının da arkasından Francione, Tom Reagan'ın kendi pozisyonu ve kendi pozisyonunun arasındaki farkları da anlatan çok çok önemli bir makale yazdı. Kusura bakmayın biz şimdiye kadar o makaleyi çevirmedik ama şu anda o makaleyi ne kadar önemsediğini öğrendik Francione'un. O yüzden de hemen o makaleyi çevirmeye başlıyoruz. En yakın zamanda sizinle mutlaka buluşturacağız. Okay, now we can go on.
All right. And so that's, so the abolitionist approach basically developed. I mean, in certain ways, I don't think I could have developed the abolitionist approach with Tom, because I don't think he would have agreed with all of it. And so, I mean, I had the basic ideas. But there were aspects of it that I think Tom would have objected to. I don't know that I ever, there were aspects of it I'm sure he would have objected to. So now, once I was out of that relationship, then I just sort of started thinking my own ideas and came up with these six principles that all sentient beings have the right not to be property, that if they have the right not to be property, we shouldn't be using any of them. It's not a question of humane use, it's a question of no use. Veganism is a moral baseline. Sentience is the only thing that you need to be morally significant. And just all forms of discrimination, human rights and animal rights are interrelated. And the sixth principle that violence is bad. And so that is the abolitionist approach.
Yeah, we did a 2.5 hour of presentation before this session on six principles, with our other abolitionist friends. So I think people should at least know a little about these principles. I'm really glad to be able to say that, actually. I'm really proud of this.
Okay, great. Well, that's good. Yeah. And so that, so that's really how it happened. And what sort of reaction have I had? The reaction I've had is was hostility. I mean, they don't like it. I mean, look, the animal, we call it a movement. It's not a movement. It's a bunch of businesses. They don't like my work because my work challenges and rejects their business model. That's what it's all about. It's about rejecting their business model. They sell compassion. I reject that. I do not believe that is what we should be doing. I think we should be promoting justice, not selling compassion. As a matter of fact, that's really good. You can put that on a meme. You can put that on a meme. I'm not interested in selling compassion. That's what they do. And it doesn't, what it does is it makes people feel good. It doesn't change anything for animals. And it allows these people to bring in millions and millions of dollars in donations so that they can run these businesses and have, and be celebrities amongst animal people. And if you really want to see what I regard as a few years ago, there's a big conference that happens in this country every year called, animal. I don't even know what the hell, I forgot what it's called. There's a big conference. I've put it out of my mind what it's called. But every year they have this big conference. And you go and you see the same people trotting out the same garbage, same welfarist garbage. And you have all of these people
to the same audience.
I mean, it's like,
why, if you're not actively working on something, why would you want to go and look at videos of bad things anymore? I just don't understand that. It builds up emotions and things like that, but it's not constructive. You know?
I mean, you get people who sort of go to these conferences and they watch the gory movie. They watch Earthlings for the 65 millionth time. What's the point? I mean, it's sort of like torture porn or something like that. What is the point of it? And but it's the same people every year. It's the same people who trot out the same garbage to the same group of people, although new people come in, and they're all being indoctrinated with this crap that the thing to do is to make it all better because people need to be taken along in baby steps, which is completely wrong. Not one of the organizations in this country sells my books, not one. And if ever any one of them did, I would start worrying, because I would worry that somehow they had misread what I said, because I think they are all worthless. As a matter of fact, I think they're worse than worthless. Speaking of books, here's my new one. This is the cover for my new one. This will be out in about 2 months. It's Why Veganism Matters, the Moral Value of Animals.
Okay, just let me translate first,
yeah.
And then we are really curious about the new book. Şimdiye kadarki kısım abolisyonist yaklaşımı diyor. Tom Reagan'la beraber yapsaydım zaten o ikna olmazdı en baştan. Yani sonuçta kendi teorisinin temelleri hissedebilirliğe dayanmadığı için benimle zaten aynı fikirde olmayacaktı diyor. Ve 6 ilkeyi belirlediğimde, bu ilkeleri küçücük hatırlattı bize, ben de size hatırlatayım. Veganlık temel olmalıdır. Dernekler, örgütler, yani veganlığı değil de mutlu sömürüyü savunmanın kendisi yanlıştır. Çünkü hayvan kullanımı düzenlenemez. Veganlıktan daha azı asla kabul edilemez. Çünkü hayvanlar için haksızlıktır. Ve hayvanlarla ilgili bizim bazımız hissedebilirlik olmalıdır ve bütün ayrımcılıklara aynı şekilde karşı çıkmamız gerekir. Türcülük, cinsiyetçilik, ırkçılık, bunların hepsi birlikte bitirilmelidir ve buna karşı bir aktivistin bir duruşu olmalıdır. Ve 6. şiddetsizlik çok çok önemli. Şiddetsizlik bizim hareketimizin temeli olmalıdır. Ben bunları diyor diğer şirketlere, çünkü aslında hareket olarak bilinen şey şirketlerden ibaret ve ben bu şirketlere bunların iş modellerini reddettiğimi söylediğimde tabii ki bana karşı çıktılar. Ben onlar merhamet satmaya çalışırken onları adalet satmaya davet ettim. Yani adalete teşvik etmeye, hayvanlara karşı adil olmaya, onları kullanmanın kendisini ortadan kaldırmaya teşvik etmeye çalıştım. Ama tabii ki bana izin vermediler bunun için. İzin vermemeye çalıştılar. Ve milyonlar topladılar kendi işleri üzerinden. Milyon dolarlar topladılar ve ünlüler haline geldiler diyor. Bir de bir konferanstan bahsetti. Orada her yıl yapılan büyük bir konferans. Bütün bu şirketleşmiş sözde hayvan örgütlerinin insanları bir araya geliyor ve bu insanlar birlikte aynı videoları izliyorlar, hayvana şiddet videolarını. Hep beraber aynı videolara tekrar ağlayıp arkasından tekrar hayvan kullanımını nasıl düzenleyebiliriz, nasıl yeni refahçı kampanyalar yapabiliriz tartışıyorlar diyor. Ve bunun kendisinin ne kadar sıkıntılı bir şey olduğundan bahsediyor. Ve bu örgütler aynı zamanda tabii bebek adımlarını, yani hemen vegan olmanıza gerek yok. Önce bilmem neyi bırakın, ondan sonra da şunu bırakın şeklinde içinde hiçbir zaman işe yaramamış olan bir takım bebek adımlarını savunmaya devam ediyorlar ve bu şirketler asla benim kitaplarımla ilgilenmediler. Görüşlerimle, kitaplarımla. Francione'un bu arada çok çok fazla kitabı var. Bizde şu anda çevirisi olmuş olan 2 tane kitap var. Bunlardan bir tanesi İnsan Neden Vegan Olur, bir tanesi Hayvan Haklarına Giriş. Diğer kitaplarından da umuyoruz ki daha sonrasında çeviriler olacak. Ama bir sürü var ve bu kitapları asla satmadılar, asla görmediler. Hani hepsini görmezden geldiler diyor. Şimdi kitap vesilesiyle Gary Francione'un yeni bir kitabı çıkmak üzere ve bize şimdi o kitabından bahsedecek. Heyecanla bekliyoruz. Okay.
Okay. All I can say is this book is so good that no.
It's good.
Really good. The book is basically book is basically an argument that people, it's directed at a particular audience. It's not directed at people who don't care about animals. It's not intended to persuade people that don't care about animals. It's directed at people who care about animals and who think animals matter morally and who aren't vegan. And so what I argue in the book is that if you think animals don't matter, well, then it doesn't matter what you do with them. If you think they do matter, then you're committed to be a vegan. You are committed. You have a moral obligation to be a vegan. Because if animals, and then I argue that animals are persons, by which I mean animals have a morally significant interest in their lives, and that killing them, not just making them suffer, but killing them is wrong. You take something from them, you harm them when you kill them. And therefore, we cannot participate in institutionalized exploitation of animals. We must stop eating them, wearing them, using them. We just have to stop it. And that is not an extreme idea. The extreme idea is that people who claim to care about animals continue to eat them, wear them, and use them. That's what's extreme.
Okay. Şimdi bu kitapta aslında hayvanları umursamayanlara değil, hayvanları umursayıp da henüz vegan olmayanlara sesleniyor. Ve aslında bunu da en başından itibaren söylüyor ve şöyle bir argümanla çıkıyor kitap. Umursuyorsanız eğer, hayvanları umursuyorsanız o zaman vegan olmakla doğrudan yükümlüsünüz. Acı çektirmemek değil asıl mesele. Onları acı çektirmemek kadar onları öldürmemek de önemli. Bunların hem acı çektirmek hem hayvanları öldürmek, ikisi de zaten eşit derecede yanlış şeyler ve bizim kurumsallaşmış olan sömürüyü durdurmamız gerekiyor. Bu ekstrem bir fikir değil, bu aşırı bir fikir değil. Asıl aşırı olan bizim hayvanları önemsediğimizi iddia ettiğimiz halde onları sömürüyor, onları öldürüyor olmamız, onların sömürüsü ve ölümü üzerinden kendi yaşamlarımızı kurmamız, onların bedenlerini ve bedenlerinden çıkanları almamız ve yaşamımızın kendi çıkarlarımıza yönelik bir parçası haline getirmemiz. Okay.
Okay, very good. So that's what the book is about. And then it explains, it goes through how we think about animals. We think of animals as having some moral value, but it's okay for us to use them because we assume that they're different from us, that they can feel pain, but they're really different from us mentally, and that they don't really have an interest in their lives. That is an idea that goes back to Bentham, and it's an idea that is very much in Singer. And unfortunately, it's an idea that's in Reagan, because although Reagan leaves open whether or not sentient beings can be subjects of a life, he expresses a great deal of pessimism about it. And he certainly, his theory certainly doesn't encompass sentient beings as it stands. Could it? Yes, but it would require a modification. So basically, neither Reagan nor Singer, the two most important ethicists next to me, the two most important ethicists, neither of them accepts that sentience is enough for personhood. So what I argue is sentience is enough. We can't understand animal minds anyway. I mean, I think the whole field of cognitive ethology is nonsense. We're never going to understand how animals think. They don't use language. You can't understand how they think. There was a philosopher, and I discussed this in the book. There was a philosopher who wrote a paper once called "What Is It Like to Be a Bat?" And the answer that he gave basically is, we'll never know because we can't understand how bats think. And the thing is, I agree with him. His name is Nagel.
I'm sorry. It wasn't Wittgenstein, right?
No. Well, Wittgenstein said something similar. He said, if a lion could talk, we wouldn't understand him. But with Wittgenstein, you never know what the hell he was talking about. Of course. I mean, when Wittgenstein speaks, we can't understand him. And you have people spend their entire careers focusing on 3 paragraphs of what and if you need people to spend an entire career focusing on 3 paragraphs you wrote, you need to write more clearly. And but no, Thomas Nagel was the guy who said, what's it like to be a bat? And he basically concluded, we're never going to know. We can't understand their subjective consciousness. I think I can understand your subjective consciousness because you and I speak language, but I don't know. I mean, I can't be 100% sure of what's going on in your head. I certainly can't understand. Do my dogs think? Absolutely. I have no idea how they think. I don't know what it is like to think without language, without concepts. I have no idea. And so we're never going to know anyway, but they do think, that's clear. And so why do they have to think in a particular way? And why do we think that our way of thinking is better than their way of thinking? Because that's nonsense. I mean, that's just a stipulation. It's not anything that you can show. And there's this tendency that philosophers, basically philosophers like Peter Singer or Jeff McMahon or any one of these other people basically says, well, the beings who matter are the beings who can philosophize. Well, isn't that interesting coming from philosophers? They think that philosophers matter more than everybody else. Well, because then you're going to get into these value judgments about, do philosophers matter more than workers, than laborers, factory laborers? If you've got a philosopher and a factory laborer sitting on a boat and you've got to throw one of them out, well, what these people say basically would lead to the fact you got to throw the worker out because the philosopher has loftier views. Well, I mean, I don't know how you translate it into Turkish, but that's what we call bullshit.
Sure, yeah, okay. Bullshit. How can we? Okay. we have a word for that, and I think I'm gonna use it. Okay.
Very good.
If you use it, then I'm gonna use it then. Okay. Diyor ki kitapta bahsettiğim şey aslında hayvanların ahlaki değerleri var ama acaba onu kullanabilir miyiz gibi bir yaklaşımın ne kadar yanlış olduğu ve maalesef Bentham bunu savundu, Singer bunu savundu ve Reagan da bunu savundu. Ve Reagan'da, Singer'da ikisi de aslında hissedebilirliğin temel olduğunu maalesef kabul etmedi. Diyor ki kitapta bir de Thomas Nagel diye bir başka filozofun bu konudaki görüşlerinden bahsettim. Bir yarasa olmak nedir şeklinde de aslında çevirebilecek bir kitabı var ve ondan bahsettim diyor. Onda da şunu anlatıyor diyor. Bir yarasa belli ki düşünebiliyor ama ben onun nasıl düşündüğünü hiçbir zaman anlayamayacağım. Dolayısıyla da benim onunla ilgili tek bilmem gereken şey onun düşünebildiği, onun hissedebildiği, hissedebilirlikten bahsediyoruz aslında hala burada. Yani onun düşünme biçimini, onun hayatı algılama biçimini hiçbir zaman bilemeyecekken bunun üzerine bir hayvan hakları teorisi kurmam mümkün değil. O yüzden de onlarla ortak olan kıstası, yani hissedebilirliği alıyorum. Ve Singer gibilerin diyor, Reagan gibi, Singer gibilerin bir eğilimi şudur ki her şeyi felsefeleştirmeye çalışırlar ve her şeyi felsefeleştirerek günlük hayatın kendi gerçeklerinden, kendi neden-sonuç ilişkilerinden aslında bir yandan koparmaya çalışırlar. Ve böylece Reagan gibi varacağınız sonuçta şöyle bir şey olur. Mesela bir botun içinde bir felsefeci ve bir işçi varsa ve o bot sadece bir kişiyi taşıyabiliyorsa o zaman o bottan felsefecinin değil işçinin atılması gerekiyordur. En sonunda varılan sonuç böyle saçma sapan bir yere gelir diyor. Saçma sapan, evet, ben saçma sapan kelimesi. Bullshit means saçma sapan.
Very good. Very good. Okay.
Okay, then.
And so that's what the book is about. Is basically it's a theory of animal personhood based only on sentience, and that if you accept animal personhood, you simply can't continue to exploit animals. Even if you don't accept animal personhood, if you believe that it's wrong to inflict unnecessary suffering on animals, you can't accept any suffering, even small amounts of suffering, which are imposed for reasons of pleasure, amusement, or convenience, which is basically 99.9999% of our animal use. The only use of animals that we make that isn't transparently frivolous is for vivisection, and that can't be justified for other reasons. But that requires a discussion more of rights. Everything else, actually, you don't even need to talk about right for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, okay. And also, thank you for telling us all about the content of the book. Now we don't have to buy it. You know, we are a very poor country, so now we don't have to. Thank you.
It's extremely important to read the beauty of the prose. The prose, it'll move you. You'll cry, tears.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, the idea of just crying for after reading the book just makes me cry. So okay, I will definitely buy it. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Of course, yeah. Yeah. You know, we will really buy it, and maybe we will try to translate it. Actually, we would like to translate some more books from you both, but we don't know how to publish it in this economy, because the last one, you know, the abolitionist approach, you know, you had some deal with the publisher, but it didn't work because I think they're also in a bad situation for now. So
that never came.
It didn't.
That never came out. The abolitionist, the animal rights, the abolitionist approach never came out.
Yeah, it didn't. Unfortunately, I think they are just putting it to a halt. But I think when economy gets better here, we will redo it, and they will publish it, because you know they became vegan when they are translating "Eat Like You Care." So you know they are just committed. You know.
Okay.
So let me translate. Diyor ki bu şeyde kitapta şunu anlattım. Hayvanların eğer birer kişi olduğunu, birer kişi olma statüsü tuttuğunu kabul ediyorsanız, o zaman hayvan kullanmaya devam edemezsiniz zaten. Yani bu kabulünüzle hayvan kullanmanın kendisi çelişir. Tamam, kullanmak derken işte gereksiz yere kullanmaktan bahsediyorum, ama zaten hayvan kullanmanın %99.99999'u zaten gereksiz. O yüzden bunu yapamayız hayvanlara. Kitapta bunu tartışacağını söylüyor. Evet, şimdi belki yavaş yavaş eğer sorularınız varsa sorulara geçebiliriz. Maybe we can take some questions here.
Yeah, let's take some.
Okay, let me just... Oh, there are lots of questions, lots and lots of questions. Okay, then, but here's an unfortunate thing. Now we have 40 minutes, so I think it won't be enough for the answers of all the questions. So I'm just gonna choose some and ask you, and maybe we can make, if you have time, another session in another time. It will be really great for us. So, okay. The first question says, is there any possibility for the books other than Eat Like You Care and Introduction to Animal Rights to have Turkish translations? But I think we talked about that. Let me just translate. Bu İki kitaptan başka kitap da galiba o soru gelmiş. Başka kitapların da çevirisi mümkün olacak mı? Yani olmasını tabii ki çok istiyoruz, ama şu an zaten bir kitap var. Yani hayvan haklarına abolisyonist yaklaşım, o ana kitabın çevrilmesi gibi bir şey söz konusu, ama yayın eviyle ilgili maalesef bir sıkıntı var şu anda ve yapamıyoruz. Hani o yüzden şu an kontrol edebileceğimiz bir durum değil. Büyük ihtimalle de hani mevcut ekonomiyle ilgili yayın evi henüz onu basmaya karar veremedi ya da vermedi. Yani büyük ihtimalle onlar da kendi ekonomilerini toparladıktan sonra bunlar tekrar gündeme gelecekler. Biz de çok istiyoruz çünkü Francione'un elimizde daha fazla çevirisi olduğunu. Okay, then the next question. In Turkey, animal people and also even some vegans are sometimes prejudiced and angry towards abolitionist vegans. How about in the USA? Is it the same over there?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, it isn't, right? Oh my God, it's a shock, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. This is our littlest one. Yes.
Okay.
Vegans don't like abolitionist vegans because they say that we are absolutists, that we're, look, but you've got Peter Singer saying that being a consistent vegan is fanatical or is a purist. So you've got, it's basically this, well, as long as you're vegan most of the time, then it's really okay. And so they get upset when I say, look, none of the time. You can never be, if you take veganism seriously, just like if you take racial equality seriously, you don't make any racist jokes. You don't engage in any racist behavior. It's not a question of cutting down. It's a question of not doing.
Okay, thank you. Diyor ki ya tabii ki burada da aynı şekilde bir kere diyor bu meselenin zaten çıkışı burada. Singer veganlık zaten çok ekstremdir. Veganlık zaten bu hareketin temelinde olması gereken bir şey değildir. Veganlığı doğrudan tavizsiz olarak savunmanın kendisi harekete zarar verir gibi tuhaf bir bakış açısını savunurken tabii ki burada durum bu şekilde diyor. Okay, the next question. How do you feel about the existence of abolitionist movement in Turkey? Do you think it's surprising the animal rights movement here is getting bigger every day?
No, because of your enthusiasm.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're really enthusiastic and you keep at it. That's not really very usual. I mean, that's not the way it works in most places. Is you get people who are sort of interested, and then they fade in and out. And I mean, you've been constant. So. And you work at it. I mean, in many ways, it's a really very simple idea. And if you explain it to people properly and in a non-hostile way, they gravitate towards it. And the proof is, look at the Turkish. I mean, I always use the Turkish movement as an example of this. Is like, if you've got people who are enthusiastic, educated, and knowledgeable about the theory, and they know how to go out and teach it without being aggressive and offensive to people, people just become attracted to it. And, you have all these, you have all these dinners and there's always people there and you always have these events and you always get lots of people. I mean, and that's actually the experience on a smaller scale that other people, like people in other places, they're not as organized as you are, but they have their little events and stuff, and they get a lot of people interested. And so, we get stuff, we get emails all the time about people saw a video, something that we did, or they read it and now they're vegan, and it's like, boom, it happens every single week. So, I think the Turkish example is unusual, but I think it's it shows that it's possible if you get people who are constant, consistent, educated, the stuff, you know how to answer the questions, how to, unfortunately, some people who do this are not, they don't, in order to educate people, you got to educate yourself first. And there are a lot of people who don't want to educate themselves, and that's a problem.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, it's I always encourage people just to get comfortable with the basic concepts. It's made sense to them. They just need to be able to get to the point where they can explain it to somebody else, because then you really engage people one-on-one, and it's your friends and your family. Well, family sometimes a bit difficult, but friends and colleagues at work and things like that are interested in what you're interested in. And I think Turkey has the advantage that it's not controlled by the big animal groups, you know. So
true.
I always say, if you're shouting at people or if you're asking for money, people take a step back, you know, they're defensive. But if you can engage people and just have a regular conversation and be there to follow up if someone has more questions, you engage people in a different way. And it's everybody's individual responsibility to do that. You know, when you have the big groups controlling the situation, as they do in the United States, as they do in Britain, it's send us money and we'll do it for you. You know, you can feel good by sending us a bit of money and then you don't have to do anything. But we all have to do something, not just on the animal issue, on all rights issues. You know, we all need to be responsible and engaged on this. So I think you're a great example of how individuals make a difference.
Do you have in Turkey, do you have the anonymous for the voiceless people?
Yeah, we do. They are doing this Cube of Truth thing. But don't worry, we're also on it. And, you know, we talked to those people. We had vegan camps for like 2 or 3 years now. And, you know, we interacted with those people there. And we talked about why those kind of actions are useless. And also they actually said that we are doing it in a different way. Some of us just show people the videos, but the others are telling people about veganism. They are talking about veganism, they said. And we thought that this is a positive thing, so we can just, you know, transform this kind of action. So we said that you should also change those videos. They are just telling people about how violently treated animals are, but this is not the main problem. So if you can produce the videos that just imply the animal use itself, if you can produce things like that, maybe you can show that kind of videos. And after those kind of talks, some of those people just started to, you know, search that kind of images and videos. But it's you know, it's not a easy thing, because people are just so used to seeing all those violence images. So it's difficult to tell people that in a meadow, a cow just eating some grass also includes so much violence.
Right.
So, you know,
right.
Good luck with that, because
you're right.
But you're right. If you show someone a practice, a part of industry that everyone would agree is cruel and nasty, everyone's reaction is stop that, you know. But they don't take the step back that you're talking about to see that the whole process is bad.
Right.
Just having them quietly in a field for part of their lives when they still end up going to slaughter is not a solution.
Yeah. And also, I mean, also, you know, wearing the masks, that sets us apart from everybody else. Right. It makes us different.
Yeah, we also talked about those masks. They are just useless, and they are just blocking the communication.
Right.
Exactly. And furthermore,
and it means that vegans are strange and that it's difficult and it's not part of your normal life. It's like, especially now, going vegan, as I'm sure you tell everybody, is easy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, of course.
Cheap. And it doesn't change. You're not going to spend your whole life worrying about what you're going to eat the next day. It's just becomes natural. So you spend a little bit of time, you know, learning whatever you need to learn. If it, you know, that's why we have that howdoigovegan.com site. I don't know if people have seen that site. It's the people who run it.
We have kind of a Turkish version of that here in Turkey. Yeah.
You know, so you can give somebody some information to say, this is what you eat this week while you work out all the details, you know?
I also don't know about you.
Right.
I don't know about, I don't know about Turkey, but here in the United States, the Anonymous for the Voiceless people are very right wing.
Yeah.
The organization is very right wing. The people who
we heard about that
are very right wing. You know, that's a problem for me.
It's really horrible. Okay, let me translate a little bit.
Yeah.
Kusura bakmayın arkadaşlar, bayağı böyle hararetli bir sohbet geçti. Sohbetin ne hakkında olduğunu hemen size anlatacağım. Şimdi soru şeyle ilgiliydi zaten. Bu Türkiye'deki hareket hakkında ne düşündükleriyle. Hani burada çok ciddi bir abolisyonist hareket ortaya çıkıyor. Sizce bu şaşırtıcı bir şey mi diye. Onlar da dediler ki tabii ki şaşırtıcı, ama bir yandan da zaten bu yaklaşımı ortaya koyarken beklediğimiz şey buydu ve Türkiye'deki hareket bize beklediğimiz şeyin mümkün bir şey olduğunu gösterdi. O yüzden de zaten sürekli örnek veriyoruz. Sizin hani standlarınızı, vegan buluşmalarınızı, pikniklerinizi sürekli zaten tam da bu yüzden örnek veriyoruz. Ve dedi siz tam da basit bir fikrin şiddetsizce anlatıldığında ne kadar güzel anlaşılabileceğini, birebir etkileşimin ne kadar önemli olduğunu ve ne kadar işe yarar olduğunu gösteriyorsunuz. Tabii ki biz bu konuda da çok çok gurur duyuyoruz. Bir yandan Anna şunu da söyledi ve bu çok önemli bizim için gerçekten. Abolisyonist yaklaşımı Francione'un ve Charlton kurarlarken Amerika'da aslında çok ciddi bir refahçı hareket vardı ve çok yerleşik bir refahçı hareket vardı ve bunun üzerine bütün çabalarını ortaya koymak durumunda kaldılar. Bizim buradaki şansımız bu refahçı hareketin yerleşik olmamasıydı. Dolayısıyla da hayvan hakları, veganlık temelli bir hareketi yerleştirmek bizim için nispeten daha kolay oldu. Tabii ki hepimizin de çok çok çok büyük çabalarıyla. Buradan bütün arkadaşlarıma çok teşekkür ediyorum. Dayanışmayla aynen devam ediyoruz zaten. Ve bir yandan da Türkiye'de gerçekten çok ciddi, hevesli ve eğitimli bir kitle elde ediyoruz. Şu anda sürekli eğitim çalışmaları gerçekleştiriyoruz. Çünkü kendimize eğitmezsek bir başkasına eğitmek aslında mümkün bir şey değil. Dolayısıyla da bir yandan zaten bunu yapıyor oluyoruz. Ve bu eğitim ve insanları eğitme alışkanlıkları sayesinde buradaki hareketi, hayvan hakları hareketini çok olumlu yönde büyütme şansımız oldu. Okay, so the next question. It says, some animal people refer to the concept of evolution and its use during the American Civil War, and they argue that it is okay for animal rights movement to use violent methods to achieve its ends. Do you get similar arguments? It would be helpful to hear the way you respond to this kind of arguments.
Yeah, we get those sorts of arguments. There is a general philosophical issue about whether violence is ever a good idea. There was violence, some violence, in the anti-slave movement, and there were some people who were opposed to violence. We don't have to address the morality of violence as a general matter to know that the two contexts are very different. When you had an anti-slave movement, there were a lot of people who felt very strongly that slavery was wrong. We live in a world where 98% of the people think that animal exploitation is just fine. So even if violence is justified, and I say even if, it's not going to work in a situation where most of the people are participating in something that is the target of the violence. It cannot achieve its communicative, I mean, to the extent that violence was a way of communicating frustration, anger, and resentment towards human slavery, it can't be understood that way in a society where most people engage in animal exploitation. Just think about it. Violence against animal exploiters, what does that mean? Is your mother a vegan? Because if your mother's not a vegan, she's an animal exploiter. If your sister's not a vegan, she's an animal exploiter. If your brother, if your uncle, if your aunt, if your grandmother, your grandfather, they're all animal exploiters. That was not the situation where people were engaging in violence against slave owners because they didn't, I mean, do you understand? It's a completely different context. So in a sense, you don't even have to resolve the issue about the morality of violence. It's an entirely different context, which makes the question meaningless because of the difference in the context. It can't, all it can do is further alienate people from the idea of animal rights. We make them think that we're crazy people because we're promoting violence against exploiters. Well, everybody's an exploiter, Guliche. Everybody's an exploiter, you know?
I mean, we've, I'll let you translate, but we found this as lawyers trying to, have an impact through lawsuits, because while so few people are vegan, the laws are not going to be protective of animals. I mean, not even abolitionists, they're not even going to be really protective of animals, or else people couldn't be eating, wearing them, and otherwise using animals. So we have a lot of education to do. It's trying to focus on one little practice and get a lot of time and energy and money put into changing something is really good for these big organizations, but it does nothing. In fact, it's counterproductive. People need to be doing what you're doing, which is educating on the individual level. And then the world will naturally change, because people don't want to do the things to animals that the laws are trying badly to change. You can't do it that way.
I mean, also think about if there were 20 of you in Turkey, you could have a profound effect. I mean, think about how much the small group of you, the core group of you, how much you're doing and how many people you've reached. I mean, actually, you should actually write to me about, give me an idea, because I might write something about you and about the Turkish movement, because you're doing it the right way. It's education, it's advocacy, it's intelligent advocacy. That's how you change people's minds. That's how you get them to see the morality of this. Violence makes no sense. It is nonsensical when everybody's an animal exploiter.
Yeah, actually, I don't know when it will happen, because now we are too busy, but Efe and I are also planning to write about the movement in Turkey, but in Turkish, I'm sorry. Maybe you can just learn Turkish, but you also know Turkish. You already know. Yeah. But I promise I will tell you detailedly in an essay, in an English essay. So maybe I can also polish my English like that. In an essay, how we progressed and where we go, and the welfarist movement here is in what situation and how we deal with it. Okay, I will definitely write to you, I promise.
Okay.
Right. Okay, now I'm going to translate. Evet, sorduğumuz soru şeydi, ya sorulan soru bu Amerika'daki şeyle, hani iç savaş esnasında, hani o köleliğin bitirilmesi için yapılan savaş esnasında da çok fazla şiddet kullanıldı. Peki orada kullanılan şiddet işe yarıyordu da hayvan meselesinde kullanılan şiddet hani neden işe yaramıyor, neden işe yaramayacağını düşünüyorsunuz diye bir soru sorulmuş yaklaşık olarak ve diyorlar ki ikisinin zaten birbiriyle hiçbir alakası yok. Yani ikisi birbiriyle karşılaştırılamaz şeyler. Çünkü diyorlar o zamanki şiddet zaten doğrudan köle olarak kullanılan insanlardan köle sahibi olan insanlara yönelen bir öfkenin, bir umutsuzluğun dışa vurumuydu. Ve tarihe o şekilde yazılması gerekiyordu. Ve o umutsuzluğun kendisi, o iletişim biçiminin kendisi o anda çok önemliydi meselenin anlaşılması açısından. Ama hayvan meselesinde durum böyle değil ki. Annemiz vegan değil. Efendim bilmem kaç tane akrabamız vegan değil. Arkadaşlarımız vegan değil. Yan komşumuz vegan değil. Biz öfkemizi o zaman kime yönlendireceğiz? Şiddeti kime uygulayacağız? Ve uyguladığımız şiddet ne işe yarayacak? Kime neyi kanıtlayacağız? Mesela bir köle sahibine şiddet ile karşı çıktığı zaman köle sahibine anlatabileceği bir şey var. Biz hayvanların kendileri değiliz. Biz şiddete uğrayanların kendileri değiliz. Biz yan komşumuza şiddet uyguladığımızda o hayvanlarla ilgili bizden ne öğrenebilir ki öyle bir durumda? Dolayısıyla ikisini zaten birbiriyle karşılaştırmamak gerekiyor. Bunların ikisi ayrı şeyler. Ve diyor, siz zaten Türkiye'de şu anda şiddetsiz bir hareket inşa ediyorsunuz ve bu hareketin ne kadar işler bir hareket olduğunu düşünün. Hiç şiddet kullanmadan ne kadar çok insana ulaşabildiğinizi düşünün. Bu konunun kendisi zaten çok önemli. Sizin şu anda zaten şiddete hiçbir ihtiyacınız yok ki. Neden böyle bir şeyi hem de bu kadar yanlış bir bağlamla birlikte gündeme getiresiniz ki? Ve bizden bir yandan da buradaki hareketle ilgili hani benden detaylı bir şey istedi, hani yazı istedi. Burada ne var ne yoksa duyurmak istiyorum arkadaşlar. Çok isterdim ki pandemi öncesi ve sonrasında yaptığımız vegan aktivizmleri hemen duyurabileyim ama bu sunum bir sonraki sunum olacak ve sizlere de sürpriz olacak, bana da umuyorum ki. Ama arkasından mutlaka o raporu yazıp göndereceğim diye düşünüyorum. Okay, next question.
Let me just share a quick story with you that I'd like you to translate. Some years ago, I was giving a talk and somebody who claimed to be from the Animal Liberation Front asked me if it was morally justifiable to kill a vivisector who killed 60 dogs a year. And I said no, and she got upset with me and said, why? Why is that not okay? And I said, is your mother a vegan? And it turned out her mother was not a vegan and she ate chicken. I said, your mother's responsible for more chicken deaths every year than the vivisector's responsible for dog deaths. Is it okay to kill your mother? She never answered that question. That is because there is no answer to that question.
Okay. Şunu da ekledi. Yıllar önce Alf'ten bana bir şey geldi. Oranın bir aktivisti geldi bana dedi ki ben bir diri kesimciyi neden öldüremeyeyim? O yılda onlarca köpeği öldürüyor. Yani o zaman ben neden onu öldüremem ki? Hayır dedim, öldüremezsin. Ve şey oldu, hayal kırıklığına uğradı. Ne demek yani? Sonuçta o hayvanların hayatları önemli değil mi? O zaman ona dedim ki annen şu anda bir sürü tavuğu parasını verip öldürtüp onları yiyor. Annen o köpeklerden çok daha fazla tavuğu öldürüyor. Sen anneni öldürmeyi aklından geçirdin mi? Geçirmedin. Demek ki bu işler bu şekilde olmuyor. Birilerini öldürerek yürümüyor. Bunu bize anlattı. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Okay, thank you. I'm just explaining things enthusiastically and it's somehow weird, right? In a different language and everything. Okay. Another question. What are some good methods to challenge welfarism and welfarist organizations? How should we expose the way they operate?
Well, I mean, I think you probably know how to do that in the context. I don't know enough about the welfarist context in Turkey to know. I mean, here it's very, I would say it's almost cult-like. I mean, you have the welfarists have these welfarist campaigns, and the people, the advocates that are promoting them are by and large, they don't even understand. I mean, when you try to criticize it, they don't even understand it. It's like they think that this is sacrilegious. I mean, it's very cult-like. But I think the best way to expose it is to say, look, if it's wrong to use animals, then using them humanely is not a problem. If slavery is wrong, then humane slavery is not right. Number one. Number two, most of these welfare campaigns do nothing to help animals. And number three, what they do is they make people more comfortable about continuing to exploit animals. So the only people who benefit from welfare, the only beings who benefit from welfare, these welfare campaigns, are the welfarist groups that promote them, because people give money to those campaigns because they don't want to stop exploiting animals. And they are willing to give money to somebody who says, you can continue to exploit them as long as you support our efforts to make it all better. Do you understand?
Yeah, it's like you're not giving just money to the dead chicken you buy from market. You also pay to the organization to feel better about your
exactly.
Yeah, trade.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. These kind of questions are coming to you because probably our activists are trying to prepare themselves to the upcoming future. We are just doing our best to prevent that. But it's welfarism, and it's all over the world, and people just keep popping up with those welfarist ideas. Of course, we are doing our best to explain them why welfarism is wrong. And actually, we managed to prevent, some welfarist organizations, big welfarist organizations, to be founded. So we managed to just prevent this, but we just don't know how long we can do this. We are doing our best to spread veganism, and actually we are doing our best to spread abolitionist veganism, and we are having the best reactions, I think, from all over Turkey about this. People are making tabling everywhere, and they keep coming together and talking about veganism and animal rights, and they are educating each other. And also, actually, in this pandemics, we also go on this education online. This is also a part of it, but we are doing it regularly, and we are doing our best. But you know better that welfarism is a very common idea, and it's like we are just not sure if we can prevent it, keep it away from Turkey forever.
It's important that people understand welfarism is part of the industry, because if you talk to people in the industry, you talk to people who own meatpacking plants or people who are part of these corporations that produce animal products, they always say, we want to treat animals humanely. We want, we're big supporters of animal welfare. The animal welfare movement is part of industry, Gulace. It's part of industry. And
this is a great point, actually. Yeah. Let me translate. Şimdi soru burada şeyleri hani refahçılığı ve refahçı örgütleri nasıl ifşa ederiz? Nasıl yaptıkları şeylerin yanlış olduklarını insanlara anlatırız gibi bir soru geldi. Bunun üzerine dediler ki yani kült gibiler onlar ve yani aslında laf anlatmak o kadar kolay bir şey değil. Biz insanlara laf anlatmak durumundayız. Onları desteklemesinler diye. Yani bildiğimiz argümanlardan bahsettiler. Hani bu refahçılıkla ilgili, hani kölelik yanlışsa o zaman insani kölelik diye bir şey olamaz. Dolayısıyla hayvan kullanımı yanlışsa insani hayvan kullanımı olamaz. Ve insanların içlerini rahat ettiriyor bu derneklere bağış yapmak. Çünkü hani bir yandan hayvanları kullanayım, bir yandan da parasını ödeyeyim gibi bir anlayışa geliyor en sonunda, yani yapıyor oldukları şey. Ve şeyi söyledim. Şu anda bizde çok çok büyük refahçı dernekler, örgütler henüz yok ve olmaması için elimizden geleni yapıyoruz. Ama refahçılık çok büyük bir ideoloji ve aslında çok yaygın ve nereye kadar engelleyebileceğimizi bilmiyoruz. Eğer gelirse ya da geldiği durumda hazırlıklı olmak istiyoruz. Ve bize çok önemli bir şeyden bahsetti Francione'un. Dedi ki, unutmayın, refahçılık endüstrinin bir parçası. Ve endüstrinin bir parçası olduğu için kaçınılmaz hale geliyor. Hayvan endüstrisi siz veganlığı yaymaya devam ettikçe tabii ki refahçılığı kendilerini devam ettirebilmek için savunur duruma gelecekler. Tabii ki insanlara vegan olmalarının dışında hayvan kullanmaları için bir alternatif olabileceğinden bahsedecekler. Sizin yapmanız gereken tutarlı ve tavizsiz olarak veganlık fikrini yaymaya devam etmek. Bunlarla baş etmenin en önemli yolu vegan hareketi gittikçe çok çok çok büyütmek. Çok.
One thing I want to mention is that, individuals often think, and I think they're encouraged to think, that they as individuals can't make a huge difference. And people think, oh, well, I have a job, I don't have a lot of time, I don't have a lot of money, or people won't listen to me or take it seriously. People are listening to you, and you're spending your Sunday doing this. You're taking time out of your life and to communicate with people. And there's the give and take, and that's what education and influence is. And the people that you're talking to need to do a bit of reading and talk to a few people so that they feel confident, and then they need to go out and do it. And people are frightened that they won't do it well, or someone will be hostile. So you don't convince everybody, or someone is rude to you, or you lose the occasional friend or something. But if you take it seriously, we'll keep doing that. And it's only individuals doing what you're doing that will make a difference. And the groups come and go, and they're doing something separate. And as Gary was saying, working with industry. But if you think about the history of peace movements and civil rights movements and stuff, it was people in churches and in their basements and in schools talking and educating. That's what makes a difference. It's not someone standing in a mask with a nasty video to show people, or yelling, as I said, at people, or calling people names. I always remember that I wasn't raised vegan. For 20 years, I thought I was, I cared about animals, and I happily ate them. And I have to go back and remember who I was then, because that's who I'm talking to all the time.
She needed,
Anna
needed this book.
But you have to put yourself back there and not lose your temper and not get upset, and be patient and determined and have confidence. And we can all do this, and we all have to do this.
But I would say this. Patience does not mean you tell people that it's okay to keep on doing it.
No, persistence.
You have to be very clear. If somebody comes up to me and says, well, you weren't a vegan for the first 20 some odd years of your life. And the answer is that's right. And I was wrong. And that's like saying, if we decide that racism is wrong, I'm not going to tell people it's okay to be racist because I was a racist for a while. I mean, how dumb is that, right? I mean, that's really...
Yeah, actually, Reagan told me that kind of thing. Reagan was here like years ago, and I asked him about why don't we offer people, why don't we suggest people to go vegan immediately? And he said, you didn't become vegan in a night, right? And I said, but I did. And then, the conversation was like kind of over.
Yeah, you see, that's exactly why Reagan and I split, was because he would say stuff like that, and it would make me want to weep.
Right. So, the fact that people might not follow through on a new way of thinking immediately is not your problem. You're there to give them ideas or suggestions or information if they need it, but the message has to stay clear. And if they're not coming along in their practice immediately, then you keep talking to them, but you don't change the message.
Never change the message.
The message has to be clear and consistent and show that you take it seriously. This idea
that's so true.
That if we say it's too difficult and it's purist and all that sort of thing, it means that we don't take it seriously.
Right.
Okay,
now I'm gonna translate. Şimdi bu şeyin devamı geldi. Hani sorunun cevabının devamı geldi bir yandan da. Anna bize dedi ki, İnsanların aslında bu derneklere yöneliyor olmasının sebebi ya da dernek kurmalara yöneliyor olmasının sebebi bireysel olarak bir şey yapamayacaklarını düşünüyor, buna inanıyor olmaları. Oysa ki oluyor işte, hani bireysel olarak çok fazla şey başarılabiliyor. Mesela şu anda bizler abolisyonist birer vegan olarak bu etkinliği 2 gündür sabahtan akşama kadar yürütüyoruz. Ne yaptık? Bunun için milyarlarca para mı harcadık? Hayır, öyle bir şey yapmadık. Herkes kendi elindeki imkanlarıyla geçti. Ne yaptık ama önce? Kendimizi bir güzel eğittik. Ondan sonra sizlere bir şeyler anlatabilme cesaretini bulduk kendimizde. Olması gereken de o. Kendimizi eğitmeden başkasına eğitmek diye bir şey imkansız. Bir kere şunu söylüyor Anna. Eğer biz kendimizi eğitmeden bir başkasına eğitmeye kalkarsak ya da biz veganken bir başkasına sen istersen vegan olmasan da olur en başta gibi bir takım şeyler söylersek zaten şu mesajı veriyoruz. Ben aslında veganım ama ben bu işi çok da ciddiye almıyorum. Bu mesajın kendisi zaten insanların üzerinde çok ciddi caydırıcı bir etki yapıyor. Ve geride şunu söyledi. Barış ve insan hakları hareketleri hiçbir zaman şiddet hareketleri ya da dernek hareketleri olmamıştır. Hepsi birer taban hareketi olmuştur ve hepsi konuşma ve eğitim üzerine kuruludur. Ve şu anda bizim hayvan hakları hareketi olarak da aslında en çok benzeştiğimiz bu tip barış hareketleridir. Çünkü tamamen birbirimizi ikna ve hep birlikte bir fikri kabullenme ve o fikrin doğrultusunda hareket etme üzerine kuruyoruz biz hareketi şu anda. Dolayısıyla da yapmamız gereken şey sabırlı olmak ve Anna bize şunu da hatırlatıyor. Sabırlı olmakla taviz vermek asla aynı şey değildir. Birine sabırlı olarak veganlık anlatmak, veganlıktan taviz vermek, ondan daha azını savunmak anlamına gelmemelidir. Hem sabırlı hem veganlık konusunda tutarlı ve tavizsiz olmayı becermeliyiz. Becerebiliriz de zaten. Sabahki etkili iletişim sunumunu da hatırlıyorsunuzdur. Aslında tam da bunlar için yapılan bir sunum bu. I was talking about our study on communication itself. We are working on improving our effective communication, and we are giving presentations about this. We are telling people about abolitionist approach, and besides that, we are also telling people about how to improve their vegan education.
Have you seen this book?
Oh, I didn't. Oh my God. Of course I didn't.
Really? You haven't seen this book?
Oh, is this one? Of course, well, Advocate for Animals, I am in it. Fan, I am in it.
Oh, that's right. You're in. Yes.
Right.
You're in it. Yes. So you've seen this, right? I mean,
of course, we have like 3 or 4 of it.
Okay. Home. Well, that sort of thing needs to be disseminated because, I mean, obviously Turkey is a different place, a different cultural situation, but it's the same ideas. It's the same ideas.
I think it's also particularly important, quite honestly, for women.
Yeah.
Because, I've been teaching young lawyers in my professional life. And I've always been pointing out to women the cultural context in which women speak. And most of the big organizations are run by men, many of whom don't know what they're talking about. But if you listen to women in professional work settings or academia and all that sort of thing, we don't have confidence in what we're saying often. We start out the sentence with, I'm sorry, before we speak, right? Or I may be wrong about this, but we're always apologizing for what we're saying. And I think people should be polite and we should be listening to the person that we're talking to. But you need to get to the point where you know you're right about what you want to communicate. And I think that's really important because there are some fantastic women. This is a majority women movement who have not had enough space allocated to them to make the points. The men can move over a little bit and make some room for the women to talk sometimes, right?
Yeah, actually, vegan education is also a really, really good area for that. You're definitely right. Okay, let me translate. Anna bize şeyden bahsediyor. Bu hareket aslında kadınlar için de çok önemli. Çünkü kadın ağırlıklı bir hareket ve erkeklerin kontrol ettiği birçok alan ve bunların aslında çok büyük bir çoğunluğu bu refahçı dernekler, örgütler vesaire, bunların da başında çoğunlukla erkekler var. Ve aslında onlara karşı bu bir yandan tamamen olmamakla beraber ama bir yandan da kadınların da söylediği bir söz haline de geliyor bir açıdan. Dolayısıyla da aslında söze işte kusura bakma yani ben de böyle düşünüyorum ama diye başlayan kadınlar bu meselenin kesinliğiyle, tutarlılığıyla ve tavizsizliğiyle insanlara doğrudan bu bakın böyledir diyebilme ve bir kadının bu böyledir demiş olma durumunun çoğunluğunu artırma şansına sahip oluyor. Ve bu da aslında kadınların güçlenmesi için de çok önemli bir şey. Bunu söylemiş oluyor. And I'm really sorry, but I think now we are in end of our time now. I was really hoping to talk to you more and more, but we have one more presentation after this. Actually, we will talk about what we can do in this pandemics. More like how we can use social media effectively and what we did till now and how can we improve this. So we just think that this is a very important thing for the movement in Turkey. I think it's time to say goodbye. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry now. I just missed you guys so much, you know.
We're happy to do this. We're very happy to help out with supporting what you're doing there. So, it's up to you. If you want to do, if you want us to do more, we're happy to help out and to do more. So we can do this again. And I think it's terrific you're doing this, and I appreciate you and Efe very much. So just keep doing it. Keep out there. Keep with the struggle. Keep with the struggle. As Tom Reagan
yeah,
say, we are in the struggle.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, stay in touch, and let's do it again. Okay.
Sure, we would really love that. Okay. Then let's do it again.
Take care. Okay.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.